Do
Yeah,
you want to touch on North Dakota State, and then we'll get to South Dakota State?
sure.
Okay.
I thought the trip, North Dakota State trip was for us. I mean, we had finally gone on the road. We hadn't won a game on the road this year. So I think that it was it was for us just the opportunity to go out and try to build on what we had created during our homestand and what we had been working on for the last couple of weeks. So it was good for us. I thought we played very well against North Dakota. I thought we did some really good things. I thought at the end of the day, at the end of the game, we relied on our veteran players to pull us through, and they did. Um, I thought that in the North Dakota State game, I thought that we just got out of character for about 3, 4, 5 minutes late in the game because I thought we started slow, then we battled back, and then going into half, I felt really good because I thought we were playing really good at that point in time, but coming out in the second half, we had some defensive errors and defensive rotation mistakes, and they got 2 threes to start it, and then it was just going to be a battle from that point forward.
Thanks, Coach. You want to talk about this week a little bit? I know there's just one game, so a little bit extra time to prep. What's your schedule like, and what's your look at SDSU?
Well, we had yesterday off. Today we'll practice. We'll have tomorrow off, and then we'll start our prep on Thursday. But for me, I think that this is my first time in this rivalry, so I'm really excited about it. I've seen it from afar, but I've never been a part of it, so I'm really excited to be a part of it. I'm excited for our guys. I'm glad that we have some veteran guys who have been through it and understand what this rivalry is all about. And so I'm glad that our students will be back on campus for this game. And so I'm excited to just see how our guys will react in a game like this.
Questions, Eric? Start with you.
Hi, Coach. Thanks for
Hi.
taking the time this
Yep, no
morning.
problem.
So just talking about how the players kind of just get what this rivalry is with your first time. Maybe what of the players taught you about the rivalry so far this week?
Well, one of the things about the rivalry is you can throw the records and all that stuff out the window when it comes to South Dakota and South Dakota State. It's going to be a competitive matchup. I think we kind of mirror each other this season just because they've gone through a hard non-conference. We've gone through a hard non-conference. We're both 3-2 in the league. This game is a huge game for us. It's the start of a 3-game homestand for us, and we want to put our best foot forward. It's a home game. Our students will be involved. So I think that I'm just excited to be a part of the rivalry, but I do understand that it's going to be a dogfight for sure.
And then just how impressive was it that Cruz was able to lead the team offensively in both the past two games the way he did?
Well, Cruz he's really he's kind of found his groove, his niche of where his shots are coming from and how he's getting his shots. So I think that that's really been on him. He's really studied. He's really worked hard. He's put in the extra time. So all of these good things that are happening with Cruz from an offensive standpoint are things because he's really locked into what his role is, being able to study the game and being able to put in the extra time. So it's definitely been good for him, because he went through that long stretch in the Florida trip. I think it was Florida or so, where he just had a tough time. I think now he understands where his shots are coming from. He understands his role and how we're trying to get him get him his shots. But he's also been a willing passer and a facilitator for the other guys, which means that we're sharing the ball and we're getting great team shots.
And you mentioned wanting the defense to be to to create momentum for the offense last week. Just maybe when you're trailing like against North Dakota State and maybe want a more defensive minded player, as you mentioned Mason's role last week. What's that balance of maybe like thinking, hey, maybe it's time for a particular player to ramp it up a bit offensively, or is that just not too much of a concern for you right now?
I think that to win a championship, you have to be a good defensive team. And I think that that's where it starts for us. I think that that's Coach Peterson's philosophy, and we want to definitely carry that on. But I think that, just from a defensive standpoint, we have to continue to work on being more consistent, not having scout errors at particular times in the game. But for us, it's defense. We have to be able to get stops. And when we are good defensively, we usually translate into good offense for us when we're getting stops and getting defensive rebounds and being able to push the ball up the floor and share the ball on the other end. So it really all starts for us on the defensive end of the floor of being locked into the scout, being locked into the personnel, then being able to execute on the floor during the game, and then that turns into good offense for us usually.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Pat. Coach Peterson said at the beginning of the year that Cruz, after that big game against Wisconsin, it was sort of a result of the way that Wisconsin was playing you guys defensively. Is he finding his points a little bit differently now in a way that might be a little bit more consistent?
Yeah, I believe so. I really do. I think that he had a good game against Wisconsin, but then he went through that stretch where he was having a hard time, just understanding where his shots were coming from. And I think that he's done a better job of understanding where his shots are coming from and when to take those shots. Is probably one of the bigger things. Is I think he understands when he needs to take those shots. So I think that he's grown in that respect. Just day after day, he's grown in that respect of he watches film, he understands how the defense is going to play him, and now he's become probably the focal point of most scouting reports of teams that play us. So he's got to be able to use his counters. He's got to be able to understand what they're trying to get him, what they're trying to do to him, and then be able to counter that and be able to make plays for himself, but also being able to make plays for his teammates.
Sure. And before AJ got injured a couple of years ago, he was, obviously taking a ton of shots, one of the top scorers in the Summit League. And, now he has games of 7 shots, 8 shots. I mean, has the decrease in volume of the amount of offense that he's providing had any effect on him? And, how do you feel like he's handling that role?
On AJ?
Yeah, AJ.
Yeah, I think that, just since AJ's return, AJ's still trying to find his identity with this group of guys. This is a different group of guys that he played with than 2 years ago. So I think that, again, I think I said it last week about Mason. AJ wants to win. And so he'll do whatever it takes. And if he's the guy that needs to take 12 shots, he'll take 12 shots if we can win the game. If he's the guy who, is limited to 7 shots, as long as we win the game, he's happy. So I think that there's been a little bit of adjustment. I think that AJ, because he is good with the basketball, he's good off the ball screen, his opportunities are going to come more, and he's had big games for us this year. But I think he's more about winning than it is just about, how many shot attempts he gets a game. So I think he's coming into that role. He's comfortable in that role, but obviously, we've all seen AJ be electric, man. And he's a kid who just steps up in the moment.
Yeah, and back to Cruz, he didn't shoot great against North Dakota, shot a lot better at North Dakota State, but do you expect him as a guy just going to put up numbers no matter what he's really feeling that night? Is he sort of emerging into that type of player?
I think that the one thing about Cruz that gets him the opportunities that he gets is that he can play at the basket, he can play in the mid-range, and he can shoot the 3. So he's a 3-level scorer. So I think that, I think it's just really for him to understand the flow of the game and where his shots are going to come from. And when he's really tuned into that, then he's hard to guard.
Sure. And even when you were at Omaha, was the South Dakota State rivalry a thing, or did you not care at all?
Well, I'm not going to say I didn't care because, I think the only time I ever saw the game was at the conference tournament.
Sure.
And I tell you what, that environment, it gave you chills. Just that game and that environment and just, the fan base and all those stuff and all that kind of stuff was really good. I've heard a lot about this. I don't want you guys to write this, but my wife went to South Dakota State, so she's told me a lot about the rivalry and just from back in the day when she was in school. So I'm excited to experience it. I think that's great for college basketball, man, a rivalry like that. And then just to be a part of it is going to be special for me.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did not know that, Coach. Thank you for sharing. That's
My wife is she went to South Dakota State. She's from Kadoka, South Dakota.
Kadoka. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Eric, you got to follow up on that, don't you?
She's rooting for the Coyotes on Saturday, right?
Well, since we moved to Omaha, there is no Jackrabbit gear ever in our home at all. She can say that she went to South Dakota State, but we don't roll like that. So her and my daughter, it's all about the Yotes. It was all about the Mavericks when we were in Omaha, and now it's all about the Yotes. So yeah, she'll be fired up for the game.
And then you don't have to disclose this if you don't want to, I guess. But just with Coach Pete's status, any chance he might be at the game Saturday, or is he still recovering?
I don't know about that. That question I can't answer, but what I can answer is that Coach Pete is doing great. He's recovering well. He's been a part of our game prep. He's been a part of our game prep last week and will be a part of our game prep this week. So, but as far as his status, I can't comment on that part of it.
I actually have a quick follow-up on that.
Sure.
When you first introduced this sort of unique situation to us, obviously you talked about how the assistants would have to take like double roles in some days, and has that changed? Does it go back to the normal two-person rotation with the offense and defense now, with Coach Peterson being a part of the prep now?
Yeah, it does. It really does. I mean, the game management part of it still stays the same as when we first took over, but the actual, when it comes to game planning and stuff, because he is feeling so much better, he and Casey really handle the offense, and Brandon and I do the defense depending on what team it is. So, for example, South Dakota State is my scout, and so I'll do the scout for South Dakota State, and then Brandon will do the scout for Denver. So I think it's getting back to a little bit of normal because Coach Pete is so involved in the prep now.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, anything else? Right. Well, I believe we have reached a state week, the first state week. But Coach, maybe you want to rehash the pair of home games against the North Dakota State before we move on to SDSU?
Yeah, that'd be great. So, I felt like it was a good weekend for us. I felt like after the Western Illinois loss, what we really wanted to get back to is playing gritty and playing tough, being first to the ball for all these loose balls and rebounds. And I feel like the UND game, I feel like both games, for the most part, we did that. I feel like the UND game was definitely an example of that, because we just came out with that fire right away and really didn't let up much of the game. So I felt like, especially in that second quarter, that run that we went on was really important. Nicole had such a great game. And we were really, really active, deflecting passes and forcing turnovers, and shot the ball really well too. So I think that was an all-around team win. Really felt like after that second quarter run that we had decent control of it. And but we showed that grittiness that I think was really important. And then the NDSU game, is such a back and forth battle. And after, you have a lot of emotions, and then you go back and watch it. And, certainly I think the last 6 minutes is really telling. And we watched that section of the game as a team yesterday. and talk through the value of a possession, because it really was a 1-point loss, and we fouled at the end, so they make free throws. But you're talking about one mistake and one possession, and just because a turnover at the 6-minute mark when you're up 7 doesn't seem like a big deal, those things start to add up. And in the last 6 minutes, we only got one stop and we gave up 18 points, and so it was a matter of having the killer instinct mentality of finishing games. And I don't know that we've been in that situation yet this year, especially on our home floor. So it's just it's something that we've got to improve on. We've got to get better at. Certainly Grace had a great game. Is starting to get, or not starting to, is continuing to get her teammates involved. I felt like she was maybe forcing a few looks early on in the game, and then towards the end of it settled in and took much better shots and got everybody involved. I thought we showed a lot of fight in both games. And I think what I really told our team yesterday is 2 months ago, I don't think that we play the same way. I think we've grown so much, and I think we've matured and different players have stepped up. Our hope is now 2 months from now is we don't look the same either, in a good way.
Perfect. And you guys have the first game, I know, on Saturday at 1. The men are at 6. So an extra few days to prep for South Dakota State.
Yeah, it is. And it's one of the longer weeks with a little bit more prep time. I think it's a great opportunity for us yesterday and now today to really focus on ourselves. You don't get a whole lot of time to do that during the season unless you make time for it, because you're just constantly prepping and talking about other teams and instead of yourself. And so it was a great chance for us yesterday. The kids had just a great mindset about them, I think, to just get out there and get better. We had a really good practice and really got after it. And that's just been our thing. We've got to have the get better mentality every single day. So great chance for us to do that this week. We'll take Wednesday off just to give them some time. We started school here, so great time to do that too, and give them a little bit of balance and some rest, because otherwise that's hard to build into. And then we turn our focus towards South Dakota State on Thursday. I think with our group, it's going to be approached the same way as we approach any other opponent. I know for a lot of other people that it's a huge rivalry, and I think there's a lot of hoopla and hype that goes into it. And I think it should. I think that's what makes this rivalry great, and it's what makes the state of South Dakota so great, is because you have two schools always battling it out. I think with our group, we're going to keep it business as usual, and it's sort of knowing what your team needs and knowing maturity levels. And a lot of them haven't experienced this before, at least not being out on the court and playing, and with the noise and the tough place to play that Frost is. And so we're going to keep it business as usual. And our hope is that we go in there with that same level of confidence and grittiness that we had this last weekend.
All right, Michael, you got a question queued up?
Yeah, well, obviously you first time experienced this as a head coach, but do you have any memories of this rivalry game from your previous stint with USD?
I do. Yeah, I do. I believe my first year here we lost there, and my second year we won. I remember Kate Liveringhouse having a heck of a game. That I think I mainly just remember the intensity of the place, of the rivalry, of the fans and the noise. And I know it just gets turned up, whether that game is home or away. It just gets turned up a notch. And so I think that's great. I think it's such a special rivalry. What other memories do I have? Well, it's interesting. I went on Drake's staff last year. We played there in the WNIT run. So I was reminded very quickly of how difficult that place is to play in. We got down early. Everyone got down early in their WNIT run and never recovered. So, but yeah, that's my latest experience was just last season. But now as a head coach, yeah, you're right. And I think what we're going to have to do is understand that the runs may come, and biggest thing is for us to stick together.
So the team won't look at any South Dakota State film until Thursday?
No, likely no. That's what we typically do is 2-day prep. So, yep.
Sure. Yeah, and you mentioned Nicole, but obviously Carly has really become quite the reliable player for you guys. Yeah. I mean, she keeps on taking, I guess, the shots that she's taken, and then they're just starting to fall. I mean, how impressive have you been with her development and her confidence taking those shots?
Yeah, I've been really excited about her. it's funny late in the game because I remember looking out there and thinking NDSU is long. They might be the longest team in the league. Them in state, we'll see after I see the state in person. But I know that's just a really long team. And when I looked out there, I thought we look real small. We look really small and really young. But the nice part about playing with Carly at that spot is how fast she runs. And I did feel like in transition, she was beating their post players down the floor quite often, and we were finding her, and that's such a luxury to have. So I'm excited about Carly. I said that since the start. I think she had her kind of a breakout game against St. Louis on the road, and then has experienced her ups and downs as the rest of them have. Just hasn't really found that consistency. But I think she has so much potential to get even better. She is so versatile and quick. So if we're playing her at that 5 spot, I mean, she's really a big guard, and she's taking post players off the dribble. Like I said, she's running in transition. She's learning and really growing on the defensive end. She's becoming one of those great options for us that we can trust to get in there. So it's really about who you have in the game on the floor at the end of the game, right? And for her to be one of those players, I think speaks a lot to how much she's improved.
Yeah. And obviously Janiyah sat out Thursday, but was able to play Saturday. Was that a precautionary thing on Thursday, and something that maybe you would, with the thing that's been nagging with her all year long, that's something that you would consider doing in the future?
Yeah, she really is so day to day. I should say game to game, because she never practices. She hasn't practiced since before conference play started. So it's been about almost a month now. So she's just been playing in games. And so it's really based on how much she can tolerate. And so we didn't feel like on Thursday it was the time to go and push it. And then she felt like she was able to go on Saturday. So she did. She gave us some good minutes. I guess, she played 15 and oh no, sorry. Yeah, that's right. 15. But it's just going to be so game to game. There's not much more I can say, because it really is however she feels that day. It's one of those, we would love to have her. And at the same time, if we don't have her at 100%, then it's tough to keep her in there. And then we can look at other options like Walker. Walker got into foul trouble, so then we can look at Carly. And then we look very different. But yeah, it's just based on how she's feeling.
And you mentioned Morgan was sick. Is she feeling better? And did you save the rest of the team from getting sick too?
She is feeling better. She did not get anyone else sick. So I guess that's a win and a win. She was not herself on Saturday. You could probably tell that. So would have liked to play, clearly you bank on her playing more than 5 minutes a game. I mean, she's been shooting well and playing significantly more minutes. So I think that that was just a tough thing. When you're not feeling good and trying to pull everything out of you that we can, just didn't have it. And good news is she's feeling better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Eric?
Right. Hi, Coach. Thanks for taking the time. Just with Janiyah's injury, how has she been able to take those mental reps in practice? I remember her saying that when she sees Walker out there, she's able to take those mental reps.
Oh yeah, she's the type of player that stays really engaged. So at practice, she's right there on the sidelines and she's talking people through things. And like you said, during games, she's talking to Walker quite a bit, and just she's just such a team first kid. That's just what we love about her mentality. She will stay involved and engaged, and just because she's not out there on the floor doing it, she is one of our more experienced players. And so she's really smart, and she understands how to execute things, especially on the defensive end. And so she's going to stay involved. We will squeeze as much of that knowledge out of her as we can.
Mm-hmm. And then just with it being state U, a lot of hoopla on the outside, as you said. Just how is this game maybe just different naturally, not even based on game plan or just going into the game and coaching through the game? How is this game maybe different?
I think that's the only reason that it's different is because of the extra hoopla and the rivalry. And I think really the kids that are from the state of South Dakota probably understand that or feel that even more. I think the other piece of it is our players are very well aware of who their players are. A lot of them either played with each other or against each other, high school, AU. When you get these two teams that are so close, the circles, they intertwine. And so I think that's maybe the other piece. Now, I wouldn't say that's much different from like the North Dakota schools, for example, because those schools are loaded with South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota kids. So that's, very similar recruiting region as all of us have. So maybe that's probably the only other piece, but I just think you have to do what your team needs. And I think for us, it's just business as usual. This is another opponent, don't make it a bigger deal than it is. The game is worth as much as any other game is worth. You just get one win or one loss out of it. And for us, it's going to be about playing fearless and just go in there and play confident, play hard. And then you put yourselves in a good spot to see what can happen.
And then just one more thing from me. Natalie's been dressing but not playing. What's the injury situation with the team right now?
Yeah, she is getting closer. I know you hate that answer. She's getting really close. We hope, think, we're hopeful.
Good answer, Coach. Good answer.
I know. Sorry. As soon as I know anything and you ask me, I will be honest with you. That's my honest answer. We are so hopeful. She got 2 offensive rebounds in practice yesterday where I was like, okay, yeah, we don't have anyone who can do that right now. And what a big target she is. And just to have her touch around the rim and her size, and she will be a player we welcome back with open arms, hopefully very, very soon.
Any follow-up? Man, Coach, looking at that box score you mentioned, Kate Liveringhouse, 20 points in 27 minutes.
Yeah, and you'll never know this side of it, but she had a pretty crappy practice the day before. I will never forget that because I remember thinking and talking to Dawn and saying, have you ever seen a kid come to practice the day before and just off? Like sometimes you just have a bad day and you're just off and you don't execute and you just whatever it was. I don't even really, but I remember thinking she turned it on and they couldn't guard her. And everybody remembers her like slingshot of a shot back here. Just couldn't guard her.
That patented hook shot.
Hook shot, yeah, inside.
9-13. She even hit a pair of threes for you.
Yeah, she was good. She was good that day.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time.
All right. Thank you. You guys have a great day.
All right.